a little bit different of a feel, a victory Monday. I enjoyed my victory beer as the Patriots beat the Bills. We'll get into that game. We'll get into Mac Jones in a minute. But first, I want to tell you that last week was the biggest week of this podcast's early existence. And I thank all of you for that. The likes on YouTube mean an awful lot. Just take out a second and give us that thumbs up. The comments as well mean an awful lot. And the subscriptions. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. We're about 150 short. Help us do that. It means an awful lot. Let's beat this YouTube algorithm together. Also, if you listen on Spotify, Apple Pods, don't forget to rate and review. One more note, Cattle's on Causeway, my exclusive Celtics podcast. We're going to be doing a live post-game pod on Wednesday night following the Knicks game. You don't want to miss it. Season opener, the reaction live. Back and forth, you and I reacting. Post-game happening Wednesday night. Knicks, Celtics, Cattle's on Causeway, live post-game pod right here on YouTube. I'll also have it up on the socials. All right, tomorrow we're going to get into Ian Rappaport's report about Bill Belichick's contractual status, but today it's about that game yesterday. And the Patriots, they deserve their flowers, and Mac Jones deserves his flowers. Congratulations to Coach Belichick. Win number 300 on his career, and they deserve the attention. That was the most complete performance that we've seen in a while. And I know that it kind of fell apart defensively in the fourth quarter. We'll get to that later on. But for the first three quarters, that was the most complete performance you've seen from this football team in quite some time. But we start with the quarterback because, oh my goodness, could you imagine? Could you imagine a world where your offensive line actually operates well, protects the starting quarterback? Can you imagine a world where you're actually running the football pretty well? Can you imagine a world where Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas lead the team in snaps at wide receiver? You don't have to imagine that, folks. That happened yesterday. And is it any coincidence that Mac Jones played his best game of the year yesterday and had a game-winning drive when those aforementioned things fell together? Is it crazy that Mac Jones played his best football when your offensive line gave up a pressure rate, according to Evan Lazar, under 22% on the day, which is significantly better than what we've seen this year? We've been talking about pressure rates 50%, 40%, 44%, the high 30s. Yesterday, pressure rate under 22%. Do you think that's a coincidence? Do you think it's a coincidence that your offensive line protected your quarterback the best they've protected him all year long, and that quarterback played his best game all year long? Do you think it's a coincidence when you have a 48% success rate running the football? Again, thanks to Evan Lazar. 48% success rate running the football, so your run game was pretty good. Do you think that helps the quarterback play? Do you think the offensive line and the running back play combined possibly help Mac Jones out? Do you think that playing Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas more than Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster, do you think that helped out the offensive operation and in turn helped out this quarterback? This isn't rocket science. If you've listened to this podcast before, and if you haven't, welcome aboard. The water is warm. Come on in. We got cold beverages in the back. If you've been watching this podcast long enough, you know, if you follow me on X right here at Nick C Radio, if you've done those things, you've heard me say multiple times before, Mac Jones is a quarterback that depends on the operation. He's a scheme/system quarterback. He's a guy that needs offensive line play to be competitive and competent. He needs pass protection. He needs a good run game. He needs wide receivers that can get open at least some of the time, if not most of the time. Not hardly at all. He needs the scheme to do some different things like we saw yesterday from Bill O'Brien. Motion about 73% of the time, thanks to Evan Lazar, Patriots.com. Check him out. He's great at what he does. 73% of the time we saw motion pre-snap. Get the defense moving. Define what they're doing. Zone versus man. Scheme these wide receivers open. Bunch formations off of motion. All of these different things. Rub routes. All of these different things. Mac Jones is a quarterback, like many quarterbacks, who are dependent on others. Pretty much all of them, outside of Josh Allen when he's good and Patrick Mahomes. They need the operation to work. Lamar Jackson. is somebody who needed better wide receivers and those guys to get open in a different offensive scheme to truly reach his potential, which he's doing. He was tremendous yesterday. When you have a pocket passer, all of those things, all of those elements that I mentioned, they're much more significant and important to the quarterback. So it's not crazy that Mac Jones played well yesterday when he had an offensive line blocking. He had running backs getting space up front and hitting holes and getting some yards. And he had two wide receivers that could get open and gain some yards after the catch, in Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne playing the most snaps at that position during the game. He didn't have to depend on Devontae Parker. He didn't have to ball out with 45% pressure and running for his life. Mac Jones, not surprisingly, when the program was working around him, 25 for 30, 272, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. In the second half yesterday, 14 of 16, 149, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. You go back to that Raiders game. You take the second half of the Raiders game and that game yesterday against Buffalo. In his last 6 quarters of football, Mac Jones has completed 41 of the 49 passes he has attempted. 41 of 49, 375, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Played slightly better in the second half against the Raiders. Played much better yesterday against the Bills. And it's not something that is shocking. This is not shock and awe that Mac Jones plays better when the offense is running better. If you expect Mac Jones, I've said this from the beginning, if you expect Mac Jones to be an elite quarterback, you're going to be disappointed. If you expect Mac to be that guy to carry a team when wide receivers can't get open, offensive line is not blocking for him, the run game is a puddle. If you're expecting Mac Jones to take that kind of team and say, jump on my back, fellas, we're going to win 10, 11 games, you're going to be very disappointed. Mac Jones at Alabama was a quarterback who depended on scheme and system. He was drafted as a quarterback who depends on scheme and system. When he's with the Patriots, he depends on scheme and system. And when things start to fall apart around Mac, he gets sped up. He loses his inner clock. Talked about it. You saw it yesterday in action, scoring 3 of the last 4 drives against that Bills defense. And yes, they were down 4 key defenders. That had something to do with it. I'm not going to be disingenuous and overlook that. But you scored on 3 of your last 4 drives. All of those drives obviously necessary and needed by the end of this game. And the only drive that you didn't score, it's because, guess what? Your offensive lineman had a penalty in Vidarian Lowe, ineligible man downfield, which erased the chunk play by Pharaoh Brown, and then your wide receiver fumbles the football. This is not to say that Mac has been blameless. We've played this game before. I don't want to go on and on about it, but Mac has certainly lost games. He was certainly broken against Dallas. He was certainly broken against the Saints. He was certainly not good last week against the Raiders. He's going to have those games. He's had those games in the past. He's had those games this year. And it's not to say that he hasn't lost games for the Patriots. He absolutely has. But he's also helped this team win. And he's also put this team in position to win games before. So don't buy this narrative, this echo chamber, that yesterday was only the second time that Mac Jones has had a game-winning drive. That stat is lazy. It's ridiculous. All the comeback and fourth quarter talk is absurd. It's a team game. Mac played better yesterday because the team, the offense played better. Therefore, he was better. And he raised his level at the end of the game to drive them down and win it with that touchdown. But Mac Jones has put this team in position to win several times before. And if you don't believe me, you can check out a podcast I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago about Mac Jones and statistics that might surprise you. And I talked about his comebacks. I think it was episode 10, if you want to check it out. I think it was the 10th episode that we did here. So about 2 weeks in this echo chamber, this narrative that people throw out there that Mac is incapable of winning plays, it's just not true. It's not true. And I'll give you examples. Week 1 of his rookie season against Miami, down 17-16, drives the team down the field. They're at the 11-yard line with 3:35 left. Damian Harris fumbles the ball. The defense can't come up with a stop. You lose the game. against Dallas. Yes, he threw the pick six, but people always mention the pick six, but they do not mention what happened before the pick six and after the pick six. You were down 20-14 in that game in the fourth quarter against the Cowboys. Mac Jones led a drive to build a 21-20 lead. Then he threw a pick. Dallas was up 26-21, but Mac responded. He overcame that adversity, which is never brought up when people talk about that Cowboys game. Mac responded, and he threw a touchdown. He drove down for a touchdown, 29-26 with 2:11 left. You were up by 3 points against Dallas with just over 2 minutes to go. Guess what happened? Your defense gave it up. They gave a game-tying field goal up at the end of the game. It goes into overtime. Mac again drives New England to the 46 in overtime. It's 4th and 3. Belichick decides to punt the football. Dallas's offense that is on a heater against your defense that can't stop them. Guess what happens? You punt the ball instead of go for it on 4th and 3. Dallas scores a touchdown. Game over. Let's go to Cincinnati. How about Cincinnati last year? Down 22-0 at the half. Mac brings you back 22-18, drives you down, 1st and goal from the Cincinnati 5-yard line with a $1:07 left. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles. I've just given you 1, 2, 3, 4 examples this year against Philly. He makes a throw to Kendrick Bourne in the fourth quarter on 3rd and long, a perfect thread-the-needle throw. Bourne drops it. Is that on Mac? Kayshon Boutte steps out of bounds, 4th and long, have to have it, final play of the game. Is that on Mac? Last week, he throws a perfect bucket throw to Devontae Parker down the sidelines. Late in the fourth quarter, have to have it play. Parker drops it. Touch my fingertips. Next. He dropped it. Is that on Mac? I'm willing, and I've done it. I'm willing to sit here and tell you when Mac Jones plays like crap. I'm here to tell you that he sucked against Dallas. He was broken. He sucked against the Saints. He was broken. A slight step forward against the Raiders last week. I'm okay. I'm okay being honest and telling you when Mac fails. But I'm not okay with people, trying to paint this picture of Mac never being successful. The only time he's made winning plays and the only comeback win and blah, blah, blah against Houston. Not true, and there's more games than the games I just gave you. And check out the pod. I thought Mac was helped by the play calling. Again, more motion. There was some misdirection. RPO game got Mac into a rhythm. Because they had early success with running the football, they were also able to go to play action. And Mac, I think, was 6 of 8 in play action. He's a very good play action quarterback. And we're not talking about easy throws, because I know sometimes that's another narrative that gets built up, which is like, oh, he just makes these easy short throws. He's just making these easy short throws. That's all he's doing. No. I mean, how about yesterday? The absolute dime to Pharaoh Brown with heat in his face. It's a tremendous throw. The throw to Pop Douglas inside the numbers down the middle of the field, inside the 10-yard line. Fantastic throw to Pop Douglas. The touchdown to Kendrick Bourne is not going to be talked about an awful lot, but the touchdown to Kendrick Bourne, Mac adjusts the wide receivers formation. He makes them tighter. He tightens up the wide receiver formation, and that allows Kendrick Bourne the free release and the easy release, and Mac throws that touchdown pass. That's Mac making that adjustment at the line of scrimmage. The game-winning touchdown to Mike Gesicki. There's this picture now all over X. You can check it out where Mac is looking at Gesicki. Mac knows exactly what the formation is that Buffalo has, and he knows what he's going to do. He knows this ball is going to Mike Gesicki. And he just looks over at him. He understands. He makes the throw, touchdown. How about the throw to Hunter Henry on 3rd and 8? Another have-to-have-it throw with pressure barreling down straight up in his face. A perfect throw to Hunter Henry with pressure on that 3rd and 8. So he made plenty of stud big-time throws. He also showed growth. And I illustrated this on X. You can check it out at Nick C Radio, on X. I posted the video yesterday during halftime when Mac was upset with Pop Douglas. Was trying to figure out why he was upset with Pop Douglas. He was upset with Pop Douglas because Pop did not sit against the zone. Cornerback had outside leverage. Pop should have sat. He didn't. At the last second, he moved off the spot, and that's why Mac fired it into the back of the offensive line. That's actually a really good play by Mac. If he lets that go, it could be a pick. It could be a pick six. And those are some small details that he learned from. He wouldn't make that play a couple of weeks ago in Dallas. He would throw that football carelessly. and look like a broken quarterback. Early on, first drive, there was a screen that was set up. Buffalo blew it up. Mac reacted quickly, tucked the ball, ran it. I thought his emotions were in check. Yeah, he got after Pop Douglas. I have no problem with the quarterback getting after a receiver when the receiver screws up. No issue with that. Sometimes you got to light into your guys. Also saw Mac slapping asses, giving high fives to the offensive line yesterday after a drive that wasn't good when Mac had pressure. But he was on the sidelines waiting for his guys up front to get to the sideline to greet them and say, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. Right from the jump, Mac was involved. He was focused. He had intent, pumping the crowd up. He was a guy that was absolutely there for the moment. And I thought emotionally, he handled himself well. And the big picture of this is that Mac overcame adversity. Broken against Dallas, broke against New Orleans, not good against the Raiders, overcomes the adversity, plays a very good game, and then still when he's needed, at the end of the game, he comes through. And we've gone through that before here on the podcast. If you want to check out earlier podcasts, another thing we've talked about with Mac is he's had bad games. He's usually going to have like 2 awful games a year. If you look back in 2021, he had 2 awful games. In 2022, he had 2 awful games. And sometimes he sprinkles in like an awful half. So if you're going to say 2.5 awful games, like that's what he's been known for. But he's also shown the ability to come back after those games and play pretty well. So, he's not going to be perfect. He's not going to be flawless. He's going to mess up. He's going to lose a couple of games. He's not an elite quarterback. I've stayed consistent with my Mac thoughts from the very beginning, since he got drafted. His ceiling is like top 12 and close to 12. I should say 12 to 15. That to me is his ceiling. His ceiling is the 12th best quarterback in the league if you want to throw a number. But he gets to that ceiling if the operation is working like it worked yesterday. He's not a good quarterback off schedule, off platform, because he doesn't have, the supreme athleticism. He doesn't have elite skills. His mind and his accuracy is what makes him a quarterback that I think could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And again, be right around middle of the pack, 15th, ceiling of around 12th. I've said that from the beginning. I said that when he played well. I said that when he was broken. And I've said that today after maybe his best game as a Patriot. I've stayed consistent. He needs pass protection. He needs good run game. He needs wide receivers that can get open. He needs guys that can make some plays with their legs. And if Mac Jones proves to be QB1, that's great news. It's fantastic news. Some people are upset that Mac played well yesterday. Oh, well. I know it goes against what you've been saying about the guy. I know you don't believe, some of you don't believe that offensive line play, run game, and wide receivers affect the quarterback. I don't know how you could believe that, but you're going to believe what you can believe. It's 2023. A lot of that going on. But I stayed consistent. You protect him. You run the football at least a little bit. You get wide receivers that can get open and are available to him. He's good enough to be a starter in the league. And I will stand by that. And if I end up being wrong, I end up being wrong. But him being great yesterday is good news, even if you're upset because you don't like him, even if you're upset because you're now wanting the Patriots to lose every single game the rest of the year. I said this last week when we talked about not bailing on Mac Jones. I said, don't bail on Mac Jones. The best case scenario is that Mac Jones proves that he is a starting quarterback in the NFL, because if he proves that, you have him on contract next year for under $3 million. And if Mac proves to be a QB1, then you can go out and you can address the wide receiver position, the offensive tackle position. And now you can surround him with guys that can actually help a functioning offense be more than a functioning offense and actually thrive. You want Mac Jones to be good. Even if you want a top 5 pick, you want Mac Jones to be good, because if he's good, then you have somebody to trade if you want to go down that path. I'm not shocked. We've been talking about it. Mac Jones, when he's helped, can play good football. This should not be shocking to you. All right, so how did the Patriots do it? Get to that in a minute. First, another reminder, Cattle's on Causeway, live post-game pod on Wednesday night following Knicks Celtics, the season opener, live. Back and forth. Should be fun. You guys can dip into the comments after the game. We'll break it down. We'll have a lot of fun. Again, that's coming up on Wednesday night. Also going to try to slide in a season preview pod. Cattle's on Causeway, my exclusive Celtics podcast. Going to slide in a season preview pod before Wednesday night as well for you. Rate and review, Apple Pod, Spotify, if you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to give me that thumbs up. It means an awful lot. Second of your time to give me that thumbs up. Be fantastic. So give me that. Comments always work as well. Let's beat the algorithm with some comments and subscribe. Trying to get to 1,000 subscriptions by the end of October. We're about 150 away. All right, so how'd the Patriots do it? How did they win that game yesterday? Well, we talked about the offensive line. Michael Wenu at right tackle. Cole Strange was able to be out there at left guard. Both guys played well. Your pass protection was as good as it's been all year long. Did not give up a ton of pressure. Moved the guys up front in the run game. And Michael Wenu at right tackle. I know Bill Belichick has been reluctant to make that move, but he was not reluctant yesterday, and it paid dividends. That is by far the best play at right tackle we've seen all year long. And if you could tell me that you have Trent Brown, Cole Strange, David Andrews, and then Owenu at right tackle, I feel pretty good about that as long as those guys are healthy. You got to figure out right guard. Is it Sidy Sow? Is it Antonio Mafi? Is it both those guys? You hope that Riley Reif comes back healthy at some point because he actually has played well at right guard. But I go back to the beginning of the year when we talked about this offense, and I thought this offense would turn things around. What we saw yesterday was more of what I was thinking 3-4 weeks ago. That the offensive line, if healthy, isn't terrible. The offensive line is actually pretty good if you're healthy up front. You had to figure out right tackle, but with a healthy and good Mike Owenu, you have an easier time of being able to figure out right tackle. So now you flip-flop. Now you've got Owenu at right tackle. You got to figure out right guard. So and Mafi there, maybe Riley Reif. But this offensive line, if healthy, is not a dumpster fire like we've seen through the first 6 or 7 weeks. So I have some hope if they could stay healthy that they're figuring things out with Owenu on the right side at tackle, Strange back at left guard. You mix it up at right guard until you find the right guy for that position. But they were much better up front. O-line was much better yesterday. It wasn't even close. Another difference in this game and why you were able to beat Buffalo, you had a great start. You had the field goal drive. You had the Peppers interception. You get up 10-0, some breathing room. The crowd that I think was ready to rip you apart. I was at the bar on Saturday. I live 15 minutes away from Gillette. I was at the bar on Saturday watching the UFC and some college football, and there were a number of Bills fans in the bar. And I was talking to Fitzy at EEI. We were texting back and forth, and Fitzy said there's a lot of Bills fans at this game today. That crowd would have turned really ugly really early if you did not get off to that good start. Fortunately, you get off to that good start. They did not get ugly early. You begin with a 10-0 lead, and you were able to, fortunately, hang on at the end thanks to the offense and the play of Mac Jones on that game-winning drive. I mentioned this late on Friday as well. I mentioned that there's going to be some opportunity against the Bills, and the Bills are incredibly inconsistent. They were down 4 top defenders, and you needed to do a few things good to make this game competitive. Now, I thought the Bills would probably win a close game even if you were able to make it competitive, so I was wrong on that. But the reasons this game was competitive and the reasons why the Patriots won were exactly those bullet points that we hit on Friday previewing this game. I mentioned Mac Jones. He can't be broken. He certainly was not broken. I mentioned the fact that you would have to run the football successfully when you ran. And they did. 48% success rate on the ground thanks to Evan Lazar. Patriots.com, check him out. But they had the success rate going on the ground, some push up front, as I just mentioned a moment ago. The other part of this was that you needed to change things up versus Josh Allen. Last 5 games against you, excluding the wind game, Allen completed 70% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception, and the Bills were 5-0 against you. Josh Allen had murdered you 5 games in a row, excluding the wind game. And what the Patriots did the prior 5 games, they played safe against Josh. They just kind of waited for him to make mistakes. And we talked about them needing to be more aggressive if they wanted to compete in this game. They were more aggressive. They were more aggressive yesterday against Josh Allen. They blitzed more. You saw man blitzes. Again, Evan Lazar, 43.2% blitz rate yesterday. They went after Allen. That is a stark difference compared to how they approached this matchup the last 5 times, excluding the win game, because that was an anomaly. So you were more aggressive. You got pressure. Christian Barmore was fantastic. Not only did you blitz 43.2% of the time, but you also got pressure almost 41% of the time. That's a gigantic number. And you got a lot of pressure up the middle. Barmore was fantastic. Peppers was fantastic. And you had Jalen Mills playing a little bit more free safety, which allowed Duggar to play more in the box. We talked about that last week. All of these changes, a lot of this has been in the discussion. Playing Pop more, playing Kendrick Bourne more, making sure he's the number 1 guy when it comes to snaps at wide receiver. Check and check. Trying to play Owenu at right tackle. Not just banging your head up against the wall at that position. Check. Playing Duggar more in the box. Check. So there were tangible changes to the personnel and to the game plan yesterday that made the Patriots look like a better football team. And it was mostly a clean operation. You had 1 turnover. You did not lose the turnover battle yesterday, which was fantastic. Your special team stepped up. Pop had a nice punt return. Ryland was fine kicking the football. Behringer had a Behringer bomb of 64 yards. So your special teams stood up. And you didn't have 10 flags, 12 flags thrown on you. You had 8 penalties yesterday, and 2 of those penalties were Fugazi. The J.C. Jackson illegal contact was a joke of a call. I might have had more colorful language on X if you follow me at Nick C Radio. Jack Jones, that roughing the passer, give me a freaking break. And Charles Davis, by the way, who was doing the color commentary during the game yesterday, talking about how Jack Jones needs to lower his hit zone. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. It's a perfect hit. That was textbook. Jack Jones did exactly what he was supposed to do. I don't know what Charles Davis is talking about. Jack Jones is supposed to change his hit zone because the ref screwed up. What? So that's how you won the football game. You're able to run a little bit. Your quarterback was far from broken. You changed your approach against Josh Allen and were more aggressive, and you had a cleaner operation. Tick, 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 tick. That's what happens. Boom. All right, so how much does yesterday mean in the big picture? Maybe some things that fell through the cracks. We'll get to that coming up. First, again, Cattle's on Causeway, live post-game pod Wednesday night following Celtics, Knicks, the season opener. Live microphone, back and forth Q&A. Should be fun. And don't forget to rate, review, like, comment, and subscribe. Give me that thumbs up on YouTube. Means an awful lot. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're about 150 away. All right, so on Friday I said that my hope was like 2%. I had 2% hope that the Patriots could turn this thing around, that maybe they could beat Buffalo, maybe they could split with Buffalo, Miami. I gave it a 2% chance of making this season worthwhile. Today, I am here to tell you that percentage has more than doubled, my friends. That percentage is now up to 5%. 5%. My hope percentage, 5%. And it's not terrible. I know some of you feel bad that the Patriots won yesterday. It's not terrible to have a good win. It's not terrible to have the quarterback you drafted in the first round a few years ago play the way he played. That is not a bad thing. But they were shaky late, and that's why it's only 5%. The Vidarian Lowe flag, ineligible man downfield, brutal, can't happen. The Bourne fumble, brutal, can't happen. The defense collapsed in the fourth quarter. They gave up that really easy touchdown drive after the Pats went up 2 possessions. They were up by 12, I believe. It's like 22-10. And you end up giving up that touchdown that quickly. It's bad. I thought the Bills had success. Really started late in the second quarter, but running the football inside, they had success. Tight ends is a problem. You had a problem with Michael Mayer early in the game against the Raiders, and yesterday you had problems against Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. And I mentioned that late last week in this pod. So one thing I'd watch out for is the tight end position because they've had some issues. I think you could still play Mapu more. They didn't play him enough yesterday. You need to find a way to defend those tight ends because they're just killing you underneath right now. They're killing you. But the defense gave up 22 points in the second half. That's not good. That's not good. And what really killed them was missed tackles. My goodness, how many awful missed tackles did we see in that game in the second half? Answer is way too many. I mean, you needed your quarterback. You needed Mac Jones to almost be flawless yesterday to end up winning that game because you let go of the rope in the fourth quarter. So instead of a bad start, you almost had a terrible finish. It almost flip-flopped. Flippity, floppity, floppity, flippity. But thankfully, that wasn't the case because Mac and the offense showed out on that game-winning drive. I also think it would be disingenuous to overlook the injuries on that Bills defense. That has at least some to do with the success you had offensively. It's not going to be as easy as it looked at times yesterday. You had 4 major defenders out for the Bills defense. But overall, look, it's great. It's good to win a football game. Did you want them to lose every game the rest of the year? I mean, the draft position, folks, I know you're out there, and I get it. To a point, I get it. But Denver won yesterday. The Giants won yesterday. The Bears won yesterday. There's lots of football left. The Raiders picked 7th overall last year, and they finished 6-11. You have 2 wins. You still have to go to Miami this week at a very tough game. Miami got beat by Philadelphia last night. They're going to be focused and pissed. It's going to be a tough game. So relax with the draft position. We're not going to do this every single week. You can do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give you, this is where they would be picking every day on this podcast. Lots of football left. And if the Patriots turn this thing around, guess what? That'd be a great story. And don't we watch sports for great stories? Or do we watch sports for your team to suck and get a top 3 pick? I watch sports to see teams win. I watch sports to enjoy a great story. I watch sports to enjoy a fantastic game-winning drive yesterday. If you can't enjoy that, then again, you probably should just step away for a little while and readjust. A lot still has to go right for this team not to end up picking in the top, 6, 7, 8, 9. Enjoy yesterday's win. Soak it in. You played a good game. Your quarterback looked good. Enjoy that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my victory beer yesterday. It tasted cold. It tasted fantastic. And if you don't drink, maybe you enjoyed your victory water or whatever it is that you partake in. But don't feel bad about enjoying a win. Don't feel guilty about enjoying a win. All right, that'll do it for today's podcast. Again, don't forget Cattle's on Causeway, live post-game pod on Wednesday following the game against the Knicks. I'll also have a Cattle's on Causeway season preview coming up in the next 24 to 36 hours, so be on the lookout for that. We'll be back tomorrow here with the Nick Cattle Show.